Hi, my name is Steve Wallace, and I'm the Executive Director of its Center, and I'm one of the team of folks who will be shepherding you through the Summer Networking program this summer, and I want to talk a bit about our group project. So here at the Bloomington campus, we have about 50,000 devices like these that connect to the Wi-Fi network around campus. So there are 50,000 combination of iPhones and laptops and iPads and Androids and other devices, even some game machines in the dorms that connect to the wireless service here. On campus, there are about 250 buildings, and we have approximately 5,000 access points. Those are those little boxes that you see on the wall, maybe in the hallway or on the ceiling with little blinky lights on them. Those actually have the wireless radios in them, and then they have a wired connection back to the campus network. And so your Wi-Fi connectivity interfaces with that wireless signal and then gets on board the campus wireless network, and then that takes you to campus resources or to the rest of the internet. Wireless can be a bit finicky in terms of working reliably and supporting applications well and performing well. And so one of the challenges for the application we're going to work on as a group is we're going to take the data that the wireless network collects, and we're going to analyze that data and see if we can discover new and interesting and actionable intelligence about the network. So let me give you an example. So maybe Apple comes out with a new version of their operating system for their iPhones. Or maybe a new device comes out, maybe a new Android device comes out. And there may be something about that device, it could be the hardware, it could be the software, it could be some combination that causes it not to work as well as it should with the campus network. But if it works a little bit, just doesn't work as well as it should, that's really hard to figure out. So since people are kind of tolerant of variation in how the network works, they might not reliably report that they're having problems, or their problems might sound like everyone's problems. It may be hard to differentiate those users that are having a worse experience than the normal users. So there's a lot of data in the network management console for the wireless network, and that data includes things like the quality of the signal coming from the device, whether the device has to kind of retransmit the data, or the access point has to retransmit the data towards the device, what the signal strength is with the device. So hopefully we can, as one example, mine the data, look at the data generated by these 50,000 devices that are connected every day to this network, and look for variations. So if there's statistical anomalies, so let's say a certain version of hardware or software, some combination, performs worse than what we would consider the norm or what's representative of other devices. So then we can narrow down and try to investigate what's going on. Maybe we can contact a vendor and say, look, that new product you have is pretty cool, but its wireless doesn't perform well as other wireless. And here's some hard data, so maybe you can look at this and see if there's something that you can correct in your product. We also might have places on campus where the wireless doesn't work very well. So helping to better understand and prioritize those so that we can improve the wireless is something else we could get from the data. Another possibility is to help people identify when their individual device is not performing as it should. So for example, let's say iPhone S's typically perform really well on the wireless network, but you have data on a particular iPhone 5S as it moves around campus that demonstrates that that particular iPhone isn't working as well as it should. Maybe it's because of the configuration of the iPhone, maybe there's something wrong with the iPhone. Wouldn't it be nice if a user opted in to get that information, that they could find out, how do they compare to other people who have devices that are using the wireless in a similar way? So yet another example of what we might be able to do with the data. So the data is housed in the wireless controller. So all these 5,000 access points have a connection, software connection, back to their management software that's running on something called a controller. The controller makes that information available in a couple of different ways. It syslogs some of the information, and then other information is provided via a protocol known as SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol. So when we start the class, we're going to divide the class up into some groups to get things started, to develop the initial infrastructure. And one group will be responsible for writing modules that interface directly with those controllers and start to put that data in a Python accessible database of sorts. There's probably going to be another group that defines the database schema and works on the analytics code, in other words, the code that will query the database to try and find interesting things. For example, which phones don't work as well as others, or which laptops don't work as well as others. So that group would be working on the analytics. And then we imagine a third group will work on conveying this information to users or network operators. And we'd like this to be visually compelling in how they're displayed. We think we're going to use Python mostly throughout these different components of the application. Except for the visually compelling stuff, we may use something called R. So you might want to brush up on your Python skills and might want to take a look at R. In addition, we'll be hosting this on a cloud service provider. And we'll probably use Amazon Web Services. And when we have the first class, one of the things we're likely to ask is, who's interested in learning enough about Amazon Web Services to get an instance up and running as the development instance for this project? And whoever volunteers to do that, they'll have an immediate task. We'll provide you with the credit card or billing details so you can get started, but you'll be spinning up an environment and letting everyone know how they access that environment to develop the software. So we're excited. We think this will be a good opportunity for you to work collaboratively on something that should be useful in an operational sense. We'll talk to some of the operational people within the network group at IU to hear what they'd like to see from this data, so we can do some practical stuff. The code will be open source, and you'll be contributing to an open source network management platform that we intend to grow through classes year after year. So can't wait. Please come excited.